and so forth. Two different purposes, but whenever you are not throwing out the old cell rapidly enough, then the proteins accumulate and therefore cause the heart to beat too hard each time. And as it beats too hard each time, then slowly you become more tired, wrinkles get in your forehead, which is an outward visual sign of an inward problem, and let you know that you are a candidate for a heart attack. And once that condition is remedied and corrected, well, the whole world is got off of your shoulders. You feel like a different person. Cause and effect. Cause and effect is very, very important. So notice these little technicalities of cause and effect, and learn to see everything you look at. See everything you look at. Observe it. Observe closely, very closely, everything you look at. Whenever Dr. B. Wells was showing the picture of the x-rays about the diverticulitis in the colon and how quickly it was remedied by actual use of this oxygen, and the barium enemas only bore out his findings, I was also able to study the back, the spinal column, and I pointed out things in the x-ray to him that he had to look up on his record to see. He had to look up to see if that wasn't where the problem was, because whenever you see these numbers enough, you'll know the effect that it will even have on your spinal column. This is why chiropractic adjustments does so much for people. It helps to alleviate the pressure upon the nervous, the cranial nerves that come through the spinal column, because the deficiency has weakened the muscles that cannot hold the spinal column in order. And then as he looked up in the record of the patient, he said, yes, that was the vertebrae I tested. Because, or in one case, the leg was way shorter than the other. And I said, now this patient, looking at the spinal column, held her head to the left side. It wasn't a female skeleton. Held her head way to the left side, and the left leg was shorter than the other. He looked up his record and said, that is correct. And I showed him how to, on the x-ray, to see the cause and effect that you can see in these numbers here. In these numbers, you can see that one leg was shorter than the other by the reading. So by these numbers, you can also see when the salt's too high over a period long enough, you can see the little broken capillaries in the skin. And notice when you see those, and let's imagine for a moment that a person had a high salt, and the woman became pregnant. Then you can really magnify these capillaries, and if there's a vitamin C deficiency, then there's stretch marks in the skin. Vitamin C deficiency causes stretch marks in the skin. So, this is outward appearances of the signs that you see in these numbers, and they all work together. They're all coordinated. No one number in itself paints a picture, but all of them together do paint a very, very excellent picture.
You use the word diverticulitis.
Yes.
Diverticulosis or diverticulitis?
I was taught that diverticulitis was the name of the disease, and diverticulosis was the actually deformed organ itself. Am I correct? Okay. I'm talking about the disease, and I'm not the actual organ itself. Okay. So, yes.
If you had a consistently low salt, then would you add a particular one?
We're talking about high salt. Now we'll come to the low salts in a few minutes. We're talking about the high salts. Also, whenever you start a program of reducing these, both of these should reduce in proportion. As the urea comes down, then your higher salt should come down. But you're going to find people that whose body chemistry runs along with a low salt for quite a few days, and they're doing everything you say, and all of a sudden that salt goes sky high, yet the urea stays down and the sugar stays down. Now when this happens, then nature has turned loose the stored up salt in their muscles, and they become available all at once, getting out of the system. Everybody's salted down with a piece of salt bacon, salt pork. They were salty folks. And it generally shows up in their salty speech. Because they're kind of fighting for their life, they're weak, and they want to show what a man they are, so forth. So generally, your conversation often lets you know what your numbers are, somewhere thereabout. So you'll also find it's true with sugars. The other numbers will stay down all of a sudden. The sugar will go sky high, and then they did everything you said. But the sugar also has been turned loose in the system, and it is decreasing, and they're no longer as sweet as they were before. I'm talking about actually being, what do they call it, preserved in sugar. In other words, their personality is sweeter, but the muscle itself is no longer preserved muscle. It is free, yes.
Does the salt that is actually in the muscle tissue, is it reflected in this C number?
Is the salt in the muscle actually the same salt that's represented in the C number? Yes.
The reason I ask is I've noticed in quite a number of tests of cases of people that had very low salt, down in 2C or 4C range. Then after a regimen of water for several days, their salt comes up and seems to stabilize in an upper range.
If they do that, then they haven't thrown away the salt shaker. Yes?
I wonder, Doctor, sometimes this is misconstrued with the left ventricle of the heart, with the feet and hands swell and the rest of the tissue swells. Is there any way that I can tell by looking at the numbers whether it would be heart or would it be the salt? Because you get both reasons to represent both the symptoms.
Swelling of the feet is neither the heart nor the salt. It's the kidneys. It's your kidney action. That's where your problem is in the kidneys. So you've got to start working on the kidney if you get the feet swelling down. However, the swelling of the feet affects the rhythm of the heart, and it also affects your digestive system, but the swelling of the feet is only caused because of malfunctioning kidneys. Yes.
I have a question about when the salts have started to be flushed out of the system, will that affect the pH at all?
As the salt leaves the system, does it affect the pH? To a certain extent, yes, because the higher the salt, the lower the pH. But in measuring salt in micromoles, it has very little effect on it, not near as much as adding salt to a salt solution and then running a pH test on it. It's a very dilute form, and you'd have to exaggerate terrifically in order to really make that much difference. Also, we want to call your attention now to the low salts. Low salt means that, for instance, let me show you right here while we got the 8/12 up there. Let's suppose that we have a salt, let's say, of 2. Rather constant. Well, you have a salt of rather 2 constant. As long as this urea over here stayed this high, you'll be pretty good shape. Whether it was the first reading or the 20th reading, and we'll take that up tomorrow, the difference in the fluctuation of the urea. If this urea drops, then this should go up. Actually, you need sodium chloride around 6 to 7 constant, regardless of where the urea is. Because if it stays down long enough, it will slow down your mental thinking. We find that in retarded children that we have difficulty sometimes giving the salt high enough, even to 6 or 7. Not always, but sometimes. Certain types of cases in mongoloid children, we sometimes find the salt very difficult to get up to where it should be until the child becomes overweight. The mongoloid that's overweight seems to handle the salt problem much better than those that are underweight. So, salt is absolutely necessary. I'm talking about sodium chloride, potassium chloride, magnesium chloride. It's absolutely necessary in order to rebuild and to maintain the structure of the nerve sinews themselves. When the salt is too high, it causes a deterioration of the nerve sinew. When it's too low, it causes a starvation of the nerve tissue. So these are factors that are important in the control of the salts in your system. One of the finest ways to try to get salt up in your system is by watching the profession the person does. If they sweat an awful lot, excessively, then it means that the pancreas is manufacturing too much alcohol. They should cut down on their carbohydrates and sweets, eat more green raw salads and vegetables, cut down on their meat somewhat, and also drink more water after the day is over, where you won't sweat it out, where the body can retain more water longer. Oftentimes it sweats the water out so fast it doesn't have time to keep the system rejuvenated. So there are also cooks in dry places and dry kitchens and dry areas that the sweat evaporates as fast as it comes out, and therefore you can be dehydrated and the salt crusting on the outside dry enough that it falls off, and still have trouble getting a salt that is high enough in your system. But the control of sweating is one of the finest things to do. Also, people that sweat a lot should drink more coffee because it keeps them cooler, because it's the greatest enemy alcohol's ever had. And alcohol is the cause of the body being too hot all the time. These are things to keep in mind and remember and remember and remember. And then as each case comes up, call them back to your memory, memorize them, and know them from memory, noon, night, and morning. Because I said carcinoma here in the after dinner lecture tonight, I said carcinoma, but we're going to call those omega cells from now on. So write omega cells in your chart, yes. Delta cells. Just
going back to the salt determination, why do you multiply the number that we read off from our Sawyer bridges by 0.04? Why don't we multiply it by 0.028, which is the dilution factor that we use? I was just curious if you could tell me why.
Come on.
Multiply microphone.
I was curious why we multiply the salt reading off from our Sawyer bridge by the 0.0406 factor, whereas if you take the reciprocal of the dilution, which is 1 part in 35, you get a 0.02875 or something like that. I was wondering why the 0.0406 factor.
One reason is we have different kinds of solar bridges, even though we ordered the exact same kind. If you were, whichever number you were given to multiply it by, that's the one you should multiply it by. The solar bridges that we want and the ones we've got are two different things. We wanted one to do a direct reading, and the old ones we have two old ones that we have set up this scale on the readings of micrometers on the old ones, and then whenever we take these old ones to measure the new ones by, whatever number we have to give us the equal of the older instruments is what we now use.
Is there an equivalent salt solution where I know exactly what the sodium chloride weight is, or if I use pure salt that I can make up a solution and test out my instrument or test out my number system?
In this salt reading, it's not limited to sodium chloride alone. It is all the salts that's in your system, from vegetables and everything else. It is not limited to sodium chloride alone. It's a total number of salts. We're not interested in how much of any one salt. So this brings us right to the point then, what about the salt substitutes? They're a no-no if your salt is too high. Because there's still salts, but all the substitute is a salt that's not a sodium chloride. So use your salts sparingly, and if you use your condiments correctly, you'll never miss the salts to start with. So there's enough salt in good vegetables to supply all your needs. Yes? I'm not talking about it. Did you hear that question? Would you come up and state that it's a good question?
Problem was, he mentioned if you had the problem of sweating, to use more coffee to help that problem. I asked the question, what could you use if you don't want to use any coffee at all to accomplish the same thing?
I'm not talking about what you like or what you dislike. I'm telling you what will work.
Well, I'm asking about anything else works.
No, not that I know of.
Then forget it.
Okay. Yes?
It's because the potassium is the flux of the body that we get these weakened feelings. And wouldn't a banana and a potato, and which is rich in potassium, do the same thing?
Well, you try to go by the numbers. Go by the numbers. Some people they would and some they wouldn't. I'm going to tell you what to do that will work most of cases. Is there a general rule to determine which calciums to use? Yes, we got a copy of that in the first lecture. This was which calciums to use and when. When is Cal2 indicated? We covered that this morning. When is calcium gluconate needed? Calcium gluconate is needed for people who are very, very ill and babies. Whenever the energy rating is below 32 or 33 or even 25, then they need the calcium gluconate. Calcium lactate, we've answered that many times. It is to be used whenever the body is too alkaline with a pH of 720 or more. That is the different kinds of calciums, and then there are other calciums. Yes?
Other than stopping a person from sweating, maybe to save some of the salt, what other salts would you add?
I have not had any problem with the sweating problem. A not sweating problem.
No, my question is, to get that salt up on some of these people, what else do you recommend in what you just said here?
Well, when your body is working perfectly, you'll know when you need salt. And then add a little bit, but just don't keep adding it every day. A little bit of salt is good, but too much of it begins to bring you down. And then you get too much salt, and then you'll begin to crave salt. In other words, you crave the thing that you've got too much of. The thing you've got too much of is what you crave most, yes.
Why is that?
I have no idea, except there's a little devil that gets in us, or evil spirit, and he knows it will kill us, because Jesus said he cast out evil spirits and the people are made well. I know you can starve the evil spirits out of us, and most of us have at least one or more in us, or else we'd be translated. It'd be too good for this world, and it'd be taken up in a fiery chariot. Mine gets to show him sometimes, in spite of everything I can do. So, yes?
I had a question before the break, and I didn't feel that you answered it. It was about the acid condition of the stomach and the absorption of calcium. And during the break, you mentioned that you were going to put a chart on board in the relationship of calcium and its absorption.
Yes. We'll come to that in a few minutes. We're talking about salt right now. We'll come back. Remind me. The calcium, the salts in our system are very, very essential, but they should be kept under control. I've seen people, when they sat down to eat, the first thing they do is half empty the salt shape. And yet, the salt was normal in the readings. Their body was so perfect that it threw out the excessive salts. So, it depends on how well your body is functioning. If your body is near perfect and the energy rating is up in the 80s or 90s, and you're 100, you can break a lot of rules without changing your body chemistry or losing energy. But if that energy drops, then you better walk a chalk line and be careful about the rule you break, because it'll fly back onto you and upset you terrifically. It is breaking the same rule over and over and over, hundreds and hundreds of times, that really makes the body get to the point that it cannot resist it any longer, and it finally quits, slows down, and it will eventually slow us down. So let's take this calcium table that I said I would put on the board and see. Yes, another salt question. Good. Salty questions I love.
If you have perfect numbers and you're using excessive amounts of salt and you're not measuring it in the urine, where is it coming out?
It goes out through the stool.
Skin and stool?
Yeah, that's right. Yes?
Would sea salt make a difference?
Sea salt's 7 times worse than the only other one. If one doesn't get you, the other sticks real. Now I'm going to put a chart on the board to explain something about calciums to you. And try to remember this. The calcium molecules, and so forth like this. Doesn't matter whether this is oxide or whatnot. We're representing calcium molecules by base signs, by negative signs. Now let's suppose that we want to add to this, we want to turn it to gypsum, so we're going to add H2SO4 plus Ca2 to this. Well, what happens is that around each one of these molecules, this sulfuric acid will make a surrounding. The pH between the two will seek its level. Now we have gypsum here. Now let's take one of these little molecules out of this gypsum and see what happens. In here we've got a molecule like this. Had a little bit of trouble seeing through me. I know I've been drinking muddy water. But anyway, inside of this calcium molecule, this is what's happening. One of these cations have got trapped inside, and it's going around like this. But here comes the sulfuric acid molecule now. It's bigger than the other one. So here you've got a plus here and a plus here because of your double sulfur here, 4 sulfurs. In fact, you've got 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got one up here already. And then we've got your kind of like this. So there you have gypsum. Now the very fact that these cation molecules surrounded the calcium molecule and give you the appearance in a test tube that you had turned the calcium into a sulfate is not true. The calcium electron is still traveling in the same direction, even though it's traveling at a slower rate than it did in its natural form, or a faster rate than it did in its natural form. Calcium is always calcium. What is the atomic number of calcium? 40? 40. Calcium is 40. The atomic number of calcium is 40. Potassium is 39. It's still traveling in the same direction, and the acid molecule is only surrounding it, giving the appearance of being a sulfate. So the calcium molecule is still intact. The sulfate has not changed it. If you had changed the number of electrons, you wouldn't have calcium any longer. It's the number of electrons that determine the substance, the element. Yes?
So does calcium carbonate, calcium lactate, calcium gluconate, calcium oxide, those different endings on the calcium molecule then, does that affect its absorption into the body?
Yes, it surely does. Yes. Does the calcium in its various forms affect its absorption in the body? Yes, it does. It does affect it. For instance, if you add a calcium lactate to a person whose body chemistry is too acid, they'll almost climb a wall, and that they'll lose their nerve completely. Or if you add an oxide to a person who has too much oxide, you can also cause a very serious bowel blockage. So it is very important to get the right element and the right many at the right time. I'm going to review with you something that we've already studied and talked about in course number 1. And that, yes?
Just one more question about it, and I guess I'm getting at how does the calcium molecule control the pH in the body?
How does the calcium molecule control the pH in the body? It's kind of like the bacteria. Whoever gets there fastest with the mostest wins. In other words, it's the volume. It's the amount of volume that controls the pH. Our bodies contain more calcium than everything else, but the ratio between the anions and cations at 250 for the anion and 750 for your cation is a ratio of 1 to 3. That's why, yes.
I've seen the pH fluctuate quite rapidly from day to day. How do we work the calciums into that?
The lower the energy rating, the more fluctuating of pH range. Change of calcium as often as necessary to cooperate with the body chemistry for that day. And don't think, the many times the patient will say, well, you told me yesterday you were so-and-so. I sure did. And you might say, well, you told me yesterday I didn't need a thermometer. Can you tell me today I do need one? I sure did. For instance, if there was not enough cellulose in the diet, then the stool became very sticky and spread itself all over the lining of the colon. Almost like a coated grease or oxo grease or paint or something, and therefore you need to wash it out. So it's kind of like sticking your fingers in raw dough. It's going to stick to your fingers. But if you had enough cellulose in that dough, it wouldn't stick to your fingers. But neither would you have dough, you'd have a pudding, and you made bread out of it. So these are factors you need to remember. Please remember them. We're going to start our class tonight at 6 o'clock. And I want you to study these facts till you'll have them in the morning because you're going to need them. And I'm covering the subject now that we were supposed to cover tonight. But I think very well if you'll go to your rooms, and you will also begin to review this thing and put it down in form so you'll remember it will matter much. And so forth. Two different purposes, but whenever you are not throwing out the old cell rapidly enough, then the proteins accumulate and therefore cause the heart to beat too hard each time. And as it beats too hard each time, then slowly you become more tired, wrinkles get in your forehead, which is an outward visual sign of an inward problem, and let you know that you are a candidate for a heart attack. And once that condition is remedied and corrected, well, the whole world is got off of your shoulders. You feel like a different person. Cause and effect. Cause and effect is very, very important. So notice these little technicalities of cause and effect, and learn to see everything you look at. See everything you look at. Observe it. Observe closely, very closely, everything you look at. Whenever Dr. B. Wells was showing the picture of the x-rays about the diverticulitis in the colon and how quickly it was remedied by actual use of this oxygen, and the barium enemas only bore out his findings, I was also able to study the spinal column, and I pointed out things in the x-ray to him that he had to look up on his record to see. He had to look up to see if that wasn't where the problem was, because whenever you see these numbers enough, you'll know the effect that it will even have on your spinal column. This is why chiropractic adjustments does so much for people. It helps to alleviate the pressure upon the cranial nerves that come through the spinal column, because the deficiency has weakened the muscles that cannot hold the spinal column in order. And then as he looked up in the record of the patient, he said, yes, that was the vertebrae I tested. Because, or in one case, the leg was way shorter than the other. And I said, now this patient, looking at the spinal column, held her head to the left side. It wasn't a female skeleton. Held her head way to the left side, and the left leg was shorter than the other. He looked up his record and said, that is correct. And I showed him how to, on the x-ray, to see the cause and effect that you can see in these numbers here. In these numbers, you can see that one leg was shorter than the other by the reading. So by these numbers, you can also see when the salt's too high over a period long enough, you can see the little broken capillaries in the skin. And notice when you see those, and let's imagine for a moment that a person had a high salt, and the woman became pregnant. Then you can really magnify these capillaries, and if there's a vitamin C deficiency, then there's stretch marks in the skin. Vitamin C deficiency causes stretch marks in the skin. So, this is outward appearances of the signs that you see in these numbers, and they all work together. They're all coordinated. No one number in itself paints a picture, but all of them together do paint a very, very excellent picture.
You use the word diverticulitis.
Yes.
Diverticulosis or diverticulitis?
I was taught that diverticulitis was the name of the disease, and diverticulosis was the actually deformed organ itself. Am I correct? Okay. I'm talking about the disease, and I'm not the actual organ itself. Okay. So, yes.
if you had a consistently low salt in, would you add a particular one?
We're talking about high salt. Now, we'll come to the low salts in a few minutes. We're talking about the high salts. Also, whenever you start a program of reducing these, both of these should reduce in proportion. As the urea comes down, then your higher salt should come down. But you're going to find people that whose body chemistry runs along with a low salt for quite a few days, and they're doing everything you say, and all of a sudden that salt goes sky high, but the urea stays down and the sugar stays down. Now when this happens, then nature has turned loose the stored up salt in their muscles, and they become available all at once, that they're getting out of the system. Their body salted down as a piece